Is Prithvi in the call? Yes. Both have come, so we can start. Oh no, we have 1 minute.
Yeah, yeah. This is part of a research club over there in Queen Mary's, ma'am.
Yeah, this is the research club.
Okay, okay. So you do it online only every.
Yes, we do it online.
Okay, okay,
When I was doing my PhD, I benefited a lot from the research club that we had then. I was
okay,
Professor C.T. Indra's scholar at the University
okay,
of Madras.
okay,
See,
okay, okay.
it's from there that I got this idea. And then when I studied in
Mm-hmm.
Australia, I was a visiting scholar uh,
Mm-hmm.
at the University of New South Wales for 1 year. So
Okay.
when I was there on that fellowship also, I
Mm-hmm.
realized that having such clubs is beneficial. But that was a discussion forum sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I combined this concept of research club with the postgrad. Over there, they used to have these postgrad workshops, postgrad master
Mm-hmm.
class.
Mm-hmm.
So in every conference, they would devote one session to
Teaching.
postgraduate
True.
students.
Mm-hmm.
So the scholars could meet professors and show their papers and
Mm-hmm.
get feedback. So all these ideas put together, I felt that PG students and research scholars needed good exposure
But if you
to.
do it offline, it'll be more effective, no?
Definitely,
Mm-hmm.
but this is from the convenience of our homes, and
Okay.
this is also connecting with people outside Chennai. The
Mm-hmm.
offline, we should have a.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we are thinking of having an international postgrad conference
Okay. Okay.
or even a national postgrad conference where we can
Mm-hmm.
meet,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in person.
True. True.
Can
True.
have, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because
So what
offline will always be an effective one. Yeah.
I have, agree with you 100%.
Mm-hmm. So how is it? Is it raining in the Chennai or it's?
Yes, sir, it's gloomy and cloudy.
Sorry, ma'am, we can't hear you.
I'll just get back to you. I'm getting a call.
Ma'am, can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir, we can start at 6 2.
Yeah. Fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Sadhana. Sir, Sadhana madam, she's the research supervisor of
Okay.
Prithviraj.
Hello.
Yes, we can start.
Good evening to one and all present here. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all to the fortnightly symposium of our In Tandem Research Club, a gathering of minds and ideas where we explore conflict, peace, reconciliation, and planetary well being. The theme of the academic year 2024 to 2025. Our discussion today will focus on systematic injustice and the idea of justice, encouraging us to dwell into new perspectives and explore uncharted territories. It's now my privilege to introduce our distinguished keynote speaker, Dr. Venkatanarayan Sethuraman Sir, Associate Professor, International Studies, Political Science and History, Christ University, Bangalore. He is going to speak on the title Structural Inequality and Social Justice. Extending a warm welcome to Dr. Venkatanarayan Sethuraman sir to share his knowledge and perspective. Sir, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Nishi, for that brief introduction. I'll just briefly introduce myself and then I'll get into the topic so that you'll get an idea about that one. I'm also from Chennai only. I've done my master's from Madras Christian College and then my MPhil PhD from JNU in Delhi, and then been working at different places in Africa and other places as well. Finally, I'm here at Christ University. So this particular topic, what I'm going to speak about is the structural inequality and the social justice. I'll just lay down a foundation. Probably the research scholar is going to present something based on Kamba Ramayana. So probably I may not be well versed as far as the literature is concerned, but probably I can just try to glean some of the principles over there to and link it. I mean, try to give some of the comments. But what I'm going to speak about the structural inequality and injustice is basically from a larger constitutional perspective. I have also, I keep writing more on that one. A day before yesterday also, I have written the lead article in the Hindu on the Republic Day, where I've just spoke about the constitutional from the constitutional perspective regarding this whole idea of the inequality in the Indian society. So in those lines only, I'm just going to give some of my thoughts as far as the structural inequality in Indian context is concerned. When we talk about the structural inequality, as we all know that a social structure is something where it tries to define the relationship between the people, the way in which we are organizing our economic, social and political relations. That is something which we call it as a structural fact, structure of a society is concerned. The structure plays a very, very significant role in either giving justice to the people or trying to do injustice to the people. If you're going to look at any kind of a structures, you will find either a justice or a injustice. The structure will institutionalize certain principles over there. As far as the principles of justice is concerned, the structures are something which will try to institutionalize those things also. As far as the Indian context is concerned, we always consider the constitution as a transformative document or a revolutionary document, we can call it also, for the reason that the kind of society what we have in the pre-constitutional day, it is something which is structurally as institutionalized certain forms of discrimination and inequality within that one. Historically, that has been one of a feature of not only the Indian societal structure. If you're going to look at in all the societies, even the Western societies, or any other African or Chinese, any society, if you're going to look at over a period, within the structures, we have embedded certain kind of inequality over there. But the forming of the modern political institutions, as far as the Indian context is concerned, the coming of the constitutional framework has given us an opportunity to correct those structural inequalities is concerned. That is the reason why Indian Constitution is considered to be one of a very, very progressive document, which also a transformative document where it made a significant attempt to transform the society, which was an hierarchical, a conservative society, uh, towards a modern liberal society. Whether we have achieved it or not, that's a critical reflection which we have to do at every point of time. But we have a framework for moving towards such kind of a society, getting rid of any kind of inequality that exists in a society. So obviously you need a framework, and that's why we always call a constitution or any law as an enabling factor, because the constitution cannot give a solution for everything, but the constitution can always enable us to find a solution, to fight for a certain kind of a rights. The Indian constitution, why we on what basis we say that it is something which is trying to provide a social justice, which is going to eliminate or at least address the structural inequality, is that every political document, if you're going to look at everything, will have a certain ideological framework. Indian constitution also has a strong ideological framework that lays the foundation as far as the whole concept of the social justice in Indian context is concerned. What is the ideological framework as far as the Indian constitution is concerned? Indian constitution is an ideology of what we call it as a positive liberalism, or we can call it as a social liberalism, whatever it might be. It is the framework of the Indian constitution, the ideological framework. Why that is very important? Because you will find most of the provisions in the constitutions based on this structural framework only. Without this framework, you'll not be able to really understand the constitution and its provisions itself. What is this positive liberalism? When we talk about, we all know about liberalism as in political ideology, which emerged in the European society around the 17th century. You will find that you have all the liberal thinkers from Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, everyone has brought in a certain kind of ideas which were in support of the emerging class at that point of time. And this liberalism believes in equality. That is a freedom. It believes in freedom of an individual. It insists on that one for a particular reason that only a free individual, an individual who's having a freedom, will be able to realize his potentialities. That is the basic understanding. That is why liberalism basically insists on individual freedom over there. The same kind of a society also we want to create also at the time of independence. The Constituent Assembly debates, if you're going to look at that one, we want to adopt a liberal framework. We want to give more freedom for the citizens of the India. That is also an equal freedom. That is not going to be an unequal freedom. It's going to be an equal freedom. Based on this equal freedom, we want everyone to realize their potentialities, and through that process, we want to address the structural inequalities. That is the whole idea as far as the Indian Constitution. So, how this liberalism is going to address this one? When we adopted the Constitution, the Constituent Assembly debates, if you're going to look at, we said that yeah, liberalism should be the framework as far as the Indian society is concerned. But if you're going to give a freedom for everyone in an equal manner, obviously that is not going to benefit everyone in an equal manner, because you have already an inequality in the society. That is due to the existing structural factors. We have a caste based inequality, we have a class based inequality, gender based inequality. All these inequalities are over there. So if you're going to give an equal freedom to everyone in the society, automatically those who are in a privileged position are going to benefit more compared to those who are not in a privileged position. So you cannot give a equal freedom to everyone at all. That is going to perpetuate the inequality that exists in our society. It is not going to address the inequality at all. Finally, we decided that we want to adopt liberalism. At the same time, we want to adopt a positive liberalism. The positive liberalism insists that yes, positive liberalism also believes that we need to have a freedom for the individuals to realize their potentialities. At the same time, the state should intervene in such a manner that the existing inequality, already the inequality persists in a society, so the state will intervene in such a manner that it can create opportunity for those vulnerable sections in the society to also participate in the development process of realizing their freedom in an equal manner with those who are already privileged in the society. That is what we call it as a two important kind of a policy intervention. You will find that in the constitutional framework itself. That is, one is about the affirmative action policies, and another we call it as the reservations. These both are very significant state intervention policies as far as the Indian context is concerned, which insist the whole aim objective of this affirmative and the intervention policy is to address the structural inequality and its outcome as far as the Indian society is concerned. That is the whole idea. So through this enabling factor, by enabling the people to realize their freedom, we have introduced these two important policies. If you're going to look at these policies also, there is a quite a different difference between affirmative action and the reservation over there. As we all know that United States and other places, you will find more of a affirmative action policy. See, what is the difference between that is there? An affirmative action policy is a policy which is going to enable people to participate in the competition. It is not something which is going to secure you a place at all. The affirmative action policy is going to enable people to participate in a certain kind of a competitive environment, that is in the liberal society. Reservation is going to secure you a certain kind of a position within the society. What is the difference? For example, in affirmative action policy, you will find that even in Tamil Nadu, we have this idea of giving a free bus pass for the women to travel in the buses. This is an affirmative action policy. For the reason that if you're going to enable the women to travel freely, they can participate in the economic activities so that they can also be part of the whole development process over there. Giving a scholarship to women, it'll enable to women participate. Giving scholarship to minorities, it'll enable them to participate in the liberal competitive environment is concerned. As far as the reservation is concerned, it is going to secure your position itself. It is not just about enabling, it is going to secure your position itself. why we need to have both the affirmative and the reservation policies in Indian context. That is where the Constituent Assembly debates throws more light on that one. As far as the Indian society is concerned, the structural inequality and the discrimination is so embedded within the society, it is not easy for us to enable people only through the affirmative action policies and bring about the equality. Even if you're going to enable the people, there is no guarantee that people, when they participate in the competitive environment, they are going to secure their position over their authority. That is a strong belief as far as the Constituent Assembly. If you're going to look at the Constituent Assembly debate, that is one of a strong belief among the most of the members. That is quite true also. To a larger extent, even in contemporary times, if you're going to look at the structural inequalities are so strong in our society that in spite of many of the enabling factors also, as far as the competitive environment is concerned, it obviously favors doesn't favor equally everyone at all. I'll just quote one example for that one. In 2011 there was a research study which was conducted by Professor Thoret, who was earlier UGC chairperson. They conducted a research in 2011 where in the northern part of India, in Delhi, they conducted this one. They identify different job opportunities through the newspapers, and they prepared a resume of a set of people. All the resumes, almost 100 resumes they prepared. All the resumes were having an almost a similar kind of capability or the candidates. I mean, the qualification is concerned, the skill set is concerned, as far as whatever the requirement of the job, you will find that almost similar in all the resume, except only one is that is about the name. We all know that as far as the northern part of India, the names do carry the social identity of the individual also, which you will not find in the mostly southern states. It doesn't mean that southern states you don't have a discrimination, but still in the northern states, it's quite explicit as far as naming is concerned. And they started sending the application. uh, they found that the names which had an upper caste identity over there had 30 to 40% more chances of being called for the interview. You forget about the interview, how you perform, whether you perform in a better manner. That's a secondary thing. That's after your interview. Even to be called for an interview itself, your social identity or social capital is going to play a very, very important. This is what the Constituent Assembly debate me they have debated. They said that the structural inequalities are so embedded in our society, even to enable people to even compete within a particular liberal setup itself, it's not going to be an easy thing for them. That is where the whole idea of reservation was put as one of a significant solution to handle this one. Whether the reservation is being completely followed or not, that's a different question. Let's not that is also something which is a debatable thing over there. But why these two important policy interventions as far as the Indian context is concerned, these are something to do with the larger ambition of trying to address the structural inequalities. It is not only about the caste based discrimination. Here we have to look at the gender based also over there, where we know that recently we had this 33% reservation for women being passed in the Parliament of India. We don't know. We have linked it with the delimitation, so we don't know whether it's going to come in the near future or not. But this is also shows that the kind of structural barriers that exist for the women to participate as far as politics is concerned. Not only in politics, you have in different areas. You look at the employment, you look at everywhere. There is always a glass ceiling or a barrier as far as the women is concerned. Then and now you will find that whether the courts are intervening based on the constitutional perspective, how to address these issues. We saw in Sabrimala case, whether we saw in the instant triple talaq case. All these are some of the classical examples of to show that how there needs to be a constant intervention by the state to address this kind of a structural inequality or a structural injustices that happen as far as Indian society is concerned. That is how the constitution makers thought about this idea of a social justice in Indian concept. These are the liberal concepts only. That's why the Indian Constitution is a liberal constitution. It doesn't want to create an equal society. It wants to create an egalitarian society by addressing the structural inequalities. When you talk about an egalitarian society, is all about reducing inequality. It is not about creating an equal society. We need to keep that in mind because it's a liberal constitution. Liberalism believes in inequality. If you're going to look at many of the liberal thinkers like J.S. Mill and others, they believe that inequality should persist in a society. Without inequality, there cannot be any motivation for people to participate in the economic and other activities in the society. That's why liberalism believes in inequality. So liberalism doesn't want to completely eliminate the inequality. That's the reason why, if you look at the Indian Constitution Article 38.2, the Directive Principles of State Policy, it says that the state should strive to minimize the income inequality, but at the same time eliminate the social inequality. The social inequality is something which needs to be eliminated, but at the same time, the income inequality should be minimized only. It cannot be eliminated completely at all. So these are some of the ways in which the state will keep intervening to address the structural inequalities. Certain aspects regarding the Constituent Assembly debates. This is quite an interesting one because we all know that Constitution as a legal document per se doesn't give a solution for any kind of the problems, as I insisted in the beginning. The Constitution is or any law for that matter, it is going to enable us to fight against the power structures. That is the whole idea of this whole legal framework itself. For example, child marriage. If you look at, we have a Child Marriage Abolition Act also. We have a constitution which says that we have a legal provision which says that there is a minimum wage and minimum age and other things also. But still now you will find that the child marriage is quite prevalent in India. If you take 2011 census, 10 million child marriages in India. So dowry also. Every year you have almost more than 8,000, 9,000 people dying. We have a laws and everything. What is the reason for that one is that sometimes we tend to think that the laws are going to find a solution for everything. Absolutely, the law is not going to find a solution for any kind of a social problem. It is only about the individual political efforts to find a solution for that one. To enable individual to do that only, we have all these laws which are going to help us, enable us to fight against the structural inequality over there. Certain aspects which Ambedkar very specifically emphasized during the Constituent Assembly debates and also after the debate, which forms a kind of a philosophical grounding for us to understand the nature of the Indian Constitution also. Two things I just want to insist on this particular speech. One is about the constitutional morality, which Ambedkar spoke about, which he insisted quite clearly as far as the Indian Constitution is concerned. uh, what is this constitutional morality? He said that the constitutional morality is something, the whole values and principles and the ideology of the constitution that has to be imbibed by everyone who are trying to implement this constitution. That too, very specifically, he said that the administrative class have to imbibe the constitutional values to a larger extent. For the reason that he said that the structural inequality and discrimination is quite prevalent as far as Indian society is concerned. Unless and until the rulers, the ruling class, the administrative class is not going to imbibe the constitutional morality, if they're going to carry their own prejudices based on their social location, that is not going to solve any problem at all. It is going to perpetuate the problem. So he said that the administrator, the ruling class, have to first imbibe the constitutional values. That is the constitutional morality he is talking about. The second thing which he insisted is about the public conscience. He said that the common people, this is something which he insisted for the common people, where he said that the common people, when you talk about the public conscience, he said that it is an collective ethical stand of the people. What is this collective ethical stand? A stand against any kind of oppression, any kind of a social oppression. The people have to collectively take an ethical stand. It is not about an individual ethical stand, it's a collective ethical stand. That is the public conscience. How do we realize this collective ethical stand? By questioning, by trying to raise question against any form of injustice that exists in our society. whether it's the structural injustice, whether the social discrimination, whether it's going to be the political exclusion or whatever it might be, the people should always take a collective ethical stand against these one. Unless and until we don't question, unless and until we don't challenge the power structures based on this collective ethical stand, the structural inequality and discrimination cannot be eliminated at all. So it is quite clearly he emphasized on this two important things, that the constitutional morality and the public conscience to be a very important aspect to realize the potentiality of the constitution. The constitution potentiality cannot be realized by merely having a legal document. That is why Ambedkar insisted that the success and the failure of the constitution is not in the constitution per se, it is in the people who are trying to implement this constitution. That is where the whole idea of the participation of the people in questioning the structural inequality is very, very important. The third important aspect, I'll try to emphasize this, and I'll try to end my speech. I think I have 25 minutes only, right?
Yes, sir. You can take another 5 minutes more than
Yeah,
that.
fine. Another important aspect, because these are something which are I always consider as a foundation whenever we talk about the social inequality and the discrimination is concerned. Another one important thing is that, as we all know, that Ambedkar has been a drafting committee chairman as far as Indian constitution is concerned. But one of a very, very important aspect of Ambedkar's contribution towards the Indian constitution is the word fraternity in the Indian constitution. Yeah, we all have studied about the Indian Constitution and how it emerged. We all have studied in the school that it is from the objective resolution that was passed by Nehru that has been a basis of the Indian Constitution's preamble. But if you're going to look at the Constituent Assembly debate and the history, we'll find that the word fraternity did not exist in the objective resolution which was proposed by Nehru. Later only, Ambedkar is it's a unique contribution of Ambedkar as far as the fraternity is concerned. When at the time of adoption of the Indian Constitution, he said that this fraternity is something which he borrowed, adopted from the French Revolution. We have a liberty, equality, and fraternity as an important slogan as far as the French Revolution is concerned. So initially he said that, but later, if you're going to read his works, he has dealt in depth with this whole idea of fraternity, where he said that no, it is not. From the French Revolution purely. French Revolution also could be one of a inspiration for him, but the one of the major inspiration Ambedkar got for this word fraternity is from the Buddhism. Buddhism has played a very significant role in bringing about this whole idea of fraternity of Ambedkar. The Buddhist concept of Maitri he brings in. He tries to explain that in Annihilation of Caste and also in Buddha and his Dharma later part of the time. The Maitri is nothing but it's about a fellow feeling, not only against the other human beings, again with all the living beings of the world. Maitri is a much bigger concept compared to the word fraternity over there. He raises the question, if we individuals cannot treat the other fellow being as a equal, then there is no point, there is no way of realizing equality, justice, liberty at all. When we don't have that fellow feeling to treat others in an equal manner, there is absolutely no way we can. That is why he said the fraternity is a foundational aspect as far as a Indian constitutional framework to challenge the structural inequality is concerned. He also equates this whole idea of Maitri with the concept of democracy. A democracy is about a co-living. We have to live together. We have to share our views. That is how we try to develop together in a society. But when we don't treat others equally, we don't treat others in an equal manner, that is completely defeats the whole purpose of the whole idea of democracy itself. So in that way, he says that the fraternity plays a very significant part aspect for us to realize the constitutional values of liberty, equality, and justice is concerned. That is why he says that if you want to really, whatever you see in the preamble of the Indian Constitution, these are the final kind of objective which we want to achieve. But to achieve that one, we need to have a certain precondition. That is where he brings in this whole concept of justice over there. I mean, fraternity over there. So in this way, the structural inequality that exists in a society historically, that's why we are so elated to celebrate the Constitution Day on November 26th and also the Republic Day, for the reason that for the first time in thousands of years, we have proclaimed that the people are the sovereign of this particular country. We never had that opportunity. The common people never had the opportunity to be part of this, the political decision makers in this particular. Due to the caste played a very significant role. Still now caste plays a very significant role. How structurally it is trying to keep the people away from being part of the whole developmental process that we are witnessing every day over here. And I have written a lot about this also in based on Tamil Nadu and other places. We have written a lot about this, and also the kind of class inequality what we have in the contemporary period. The recent researchers show that we have reached a kind of inequality which is worse than the pre-independence period. There is a kind of inequality which we have reached, that I've highlighted in one of my recent article on the for the Constitution Day, which was published in the Hindu, as I told you, 27th day before yesterday. So these are some of the structural inequalities which are being perpetuated, defeating the whole constitutional vision itself. So there is a need for us to really relook into all these things. If you want to realize the social justice in the contemporary period, we have to really develop or strengthen, I would say, the public conscience, as Ambedkar said. Unless and until we don't develop or strengthen a public conscience, it will be quite difficult for us to challenge the power structures to bring about a social justice, challenging the structural inequalities that exist in our society. So it's a right time for us to really relook into all this thing. That is how we can dream of creating a society or an egalitarian society, uh, um, giving an equal rights and opportunities by challenging these structural inequalities. So I'll just stop here, and in case if somebody wants to ask anything or something, then we can pick it up. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful and meaningful presentation. Listeners, kindly save your queries for the question answer section later. Now it's time to introduce paper presenter Mr. M. Prithivirajan, Ph.D. Research Scholar, Department of English, Queen Mary's College, Chennai. He is going to deliver his presentation on the title Vali's Succumbence to Systematic Injustice in the Kamba Ramayana. Sir, I welcome you to take over the meet.
Good evening, dear in tandem officials, esteemed guest, head of the department, Dr. Sadhana, my research supervisor, members and participants. And I thank the host for the kind introduction, and I also thank in tandem for the great opportunity. Now, right away, I present the paper. I share the screen. I would like to present my paper on the title Wali's Succumbence to Systemic Injustice in the Kamba Ramayana. The Kamba Ramayana, written by Kamban and translated by P.S. Sundaram. The first question to be answered: why I chose Ramayana. Ramayana is not just a myth to read and satiate our imagination, but it is a story with which we live, considering it as proto history. The story and characters are well situated within the geographical setting of India and nearby countries, with a reminiscence in the form of temples, written, oral, and visual literatures. There are a few examples to be noted down, wherein we have Vali Kandapuram in Perambalur district, Tamil Nadu, which has the legendary story of Rama meeting Vali, and Kishkinda, which is around the Tungabhadra river, near to Hampi in Karnataka, and Rishimuga mountain, where Sugriva hides himself from Vali, which is located in Karnataka, and Ramapadam and Ramsetu, which is in Rameshwaram. Also, there is the Sri Lankan's airline advertisement, which calls for which has the title as "Relive the Epic of the Ramayana Trail," which came 2 weeks ago. All these are examples wherein the Ramayana is very alive in this land. So, in that line, I would like to urge the audience to consider Ramayana as a story of our land and to suspend the religious claims attributed to it, or else it becomes a narrative dead end, closing all speculations, and approach it as a literary work influencing contemporary thoughts in terms of culture, courts, justice, and laws. And here I also want to define systemic injustice briefly, which refers to the normalized inherent flaws and negative presumptions, power dynamics, stereotypes, confirmation biases within the institutions, policies, and social norms. Certainly, this perpetuates unequal treatment of disadvantaged, marginalized groups. With that introduction, I invite you to watch a video clip which would help to fix my topic in the context and will enable me to communicate my ideas clearly.
நான் ஒரு குட்டி கதை சொல்லட்டா? உனக்கு வாலி தெரியுமா? வாலி, ராமாயணத்துல வர்ற வாலி. பெரிய வீரன், ரொம்ப சூரன், ஆனா ரொம்ப கெட்டவன். தம்பி பொண்டாட்டியே கடத்திட்டு போனவன். அவனை யாராலையும் அழிக்க முடியாது. ஏன்னா அவனுக்கு ஒரு அபூர்வ சக்தி இருந்தது. வரும், யாராவது எதிரி அவன் முன்னால நின்னா எதிரியோட பாதி போல அவனுக்கு போயிடும். அதனாலதான் ஸ்ரீராமன் மரத்து பின்னால மறைஞ்சிருந்து அம்பு விட்டு வாலிய கொன்னாரு, சூழ்ச்சியா. நம்ம பக்கம் நியாயம் தர்மம் இருந்த எதிரி கெட்டவனா பலசாலியா இருந்து அவனை சூழ்ச்சி பண்ணி கொள்றதுல தப்பே இல்லைன்னு ஸ்ரீராமன் கடவுளுடைய அவதாரம் அவரே சூழ்ச்சி செஞ்சிருக்கும் போது நான் ஏமாத்திரம். புரிஞ்சதா? புரியல?
தர்மா, உன தேடி போலீஸ் வந்து ஏதோ 3 பசங்களை உன் போட்ல படுகா பண்ணி வச்சுக்கிறியாம. ஒழுங்கா உங்களை சரண்டர் பண்ணிட்டு எஸ்ஐ தர்மா, தேவையில்லாத மாட்டிக்காத.
ஹரிஷ், பேக் செக் அவுட் பண்ணுங்க. ரூபா, கத்தியை கீழே போட்டு தள்ளி வர சொல்லு.
போலீஸ் நம்புற மாதிரி இல்ல. இப்ப மட்டும் சும்மா வந்துக்கிறீங்க, பொண்ணு வந்துக்கிறீங்க.
கத்தியை கீழே போட்டாதான் பேச்சுவார்த்தைன்னு சொல்லு.
இவரு விட்டா என்ன பண்ணி எனக்கு தெரியாது நினைச்சுக்கிறீங்களா? முதல்ல எல்லாரும் துப்பாக்கி தண்ணில போடுங்க, இல்ல கல் தாத்து போட்டுருவேன்.
ஹரிஷ், as investigation officer, confirm now, இவன் தானே criminal.
100% sir.
திருப்பி திருப்பி சொல்லுங்க. கீழே போட
குறி வச்சா எற விழணும்.
Good shot sir.
Mission accomplished in 48 hours.
Great news, Ariel.
Proud of you, proud of you.
I hope to have fixed the context to follow the paper further. And the episode of Vali's death in Ramayana is popular and important in terms of its ethical and moral implications, denoting and questioning the dharma, adharma, justice, injustice, sin, and salvation. Many debates have emerged down the centuries to justify the act of Rama murdering Vali from a blind spot. This article particularly looks into the strange process of justice, wherein we have verdict first, and then punishment comes, and later the justification for the murder. It investigates on how Vali, a character of the Kamba Ramayana, is prefixed and punished as guilty without a defendant's plea to assert his innocence, and how Wali yields to a systemic hierarchical structure as a representative of victimized natives, despite his valid and logical arguments. It also presents the frangible, volatile nature of justice and highlights the systemic injustice in the context of branding a few of the natives as uncivilized, immoral, unvirtuous, and guilty with preconceived prejudices and unequal, unfamiliar cultural codes, which may lead to unfair accusation, convictions, and annihilation. And these are the accusations I lay before. It was an extrajudicial killing with a divine excuse, and there was no fair trial or due process superseding human law and disregarding the tribal sovereignty. And this is also colonialism, cultural imperialism, and disregard for indigenous autonomy. The important characters of the selected episode from the Gamba Ramayana are Rama, Lakshmana, Vali and his brother Sugriva, and their wives Tara and Ruma, and Sugriva's minister Hanuman. As we all know the story of Ramayana, wherein Sita, the wife of Rama, is abducted by Ravana, but not knowing her whereabouts, Rama and Lakshmana walk out to the southern direction in search of her, and they come to seek the help of Sugriva. Sugriva hides himself from Vali on a mountain where he will not enter due to a sage's curse. Yet Sugriva lives in a constant fear that Vali would send people to kill him. With the same fear, he looks at the approaching Rama and Lakshmana. Here, I would like to concentrate more on the character Hanuman, which is very symbolic in the systematic injustice established in the society. Hanuman comes in the form of a Brahmin to inquire Rama and Lakshmana. His disguise as a Brahmin is notable reference to the superior protection ensured by Manu Dharma, that a Brahmin would not be harmed by any. Even gods dare not hurt them, and they command more respect than gods. This leads me to answer the question, who actually wanted Vali to be killed? Is it Sugriva or someone else? And the certain answer is Hanuman is the one who first wished Vali's death, not Sugriva. He announces to Sugriva and quoting, Lord, we have crossed the troubled seas. The one who has arrived will prove the death of garlanded Vali. And he further says, our inveterate foe Vali is about to meet his end. So his disguise as a Brahmin could be seen as another move of such class to pitching or uproot kingdoms for personal likes and dislikes. They remain a go between the rivals and enjoy accomplishing political agendas of divide and rule. Here is a reference wherein Hassan registers in the history of Tipu Sultan that Lakshmi Amanavaru, the queen of Krishnaraja Udayar, bribed a Brahmin named Ranga Iyengar and Shamya Iyengar to assassinate Tipu Sultan. We also have another incident wherein the conspiracy and assassination of Aditya Karigalan by Soman, Ravidasan, and Parameshwaran is another history to be remembered. To add further references, I quote from Romila Thapar, an eminent Indian historian. In her book, she writes Brahmins as intermediaries between the ruling classes and the people. And D.D. Kosambi, in his book, he writes about them as diplomatic agents and advisors to kings. Herman Kalki, another writer, who highlights their role as mediators between the imperial center and regional kingdoms. Hanuman thinks that Rama is Lord Vishnu himself and falls at his feet. Therein Ram says, which otherwise can be a hint for unjust superstructure insisted. How can you commit such sacrilege, a Brahmin falling at my feet, a mere Kshatriya? How could you ever do that? Hanuman replies, I'm just a monkey. And after hearing this answer, Rama allows it as lawful to fall at the feet of Kshatriya as per the Dharmic codes. This is an example of how the unjust caste hierarchy is followed by every dominant group of the society. It mandates the so-called lower group to subdue them and maintains the highest pedestal to Brahmins above kings and gods. Ramila Thapar in her books writes that the Dharmic codes which were formulated by the lawmakers were by and large the members of Brahmin community. They naturally try to maintain the superiority with a system of social hierarchies to enjoy social and legal privileges. This gradually promoted systemic injustice as objectified justice. God himself became a reasonable reference to the injustice as he plotted Wali's death unethically, encouraging the common mass to employ the license to act similarly. When Rama questions Sugriva whether he is also parted from his wife, Hanuman, the one disguised as a Brahmin, also an everlasting brahmachari, explains that Vali has abducted his wife, while Sugriva remains silent and hesitant. Hanuman takes full control of the situation and says, Lord, I have a plan. And the plan is to kill Vali and crown Sugriva and then search for Sita. Rama in haste agrees to it. Rama's personal grief and loss blurs to see the multifaceted nature of truth. Hanuman also cautions Rama, which is another strategy employed by Hanuman, that when Vali faces an enemy in combat, half the force strength becomes his. On the contrary, Sugriva did not lose half of his strength by facing Vali, as Hanuman notified. Vali and Sugriva fight with their natural ability, and both were equally powerful, describes Kamba. Therefore, Hanuman wanted to kill Vali, and he portrayed Vali as merciless evil. Perhaps Hanuman wanted to retain his position in the kingdom as superior advisor to the king, which actually he becomes. Hanuman influenced Sugriva that Vali should be killed and prepared Rama to kill Vali. On the other side, Rama quickly judged Hanuman as faultless. He presupposes Sugriva as righteous even before he could meet him. He seemed unsteady with his mind as he made friendship pact with Sugriva. He takes Sugriva's enemies as his own, even if they are just. He prejudges judges Vali with an already written verdict. So this is where justice becomes subjective and locked to the realm of his personal motives. Rama's dual standard of justice in terms of personal and public is erroneous, and readiness to befriend an evil person highlights how justice can be bent to suit one's needs. This disproves Kamban's statement that Rama and Sugriva combined cannot establish dharma on earth. Even Lakshmana, the brother of Rama, urges Rama to stay away from the unjust plot and not to trust Sugriva, the one who let down Dharma, betrayed trust, and is now ready to kill his own brother. But Rama ignores it as the worthless code of animals like Sugriva. He just says he's just a monkey and we not worry about the course that is coming with. And continues with another startling point, saying, From friends we take what we can get, not weigh their faults. Here Rama appears to be an opportunist than a protector of justice or dharma. And after hearing the story of Sugriva from Hanuman, Rama tells that he would kill Vali, give back his kingdom and his wife. Whereas we do not have any instance Sugriva asking for Rama's later promise. The mention of your kingdom and your wife, particularly by Rama, has moral implication of purity and Sugriva's wife and Vali's character as well. This can be also seen as Rama's a wish that Sita to stay chaste in Ravana's palace. It foreshadows the future events in Ramayana. This is another systematized stereotype that women are judged on the scales of chastity, reducing them to mere possessions, overshadowing their individual freedom of choice. As Rama learns that Sugriva is also parted from his wife, immediately he identified himself as Sugriva, compared Ruma to Sita, Vali to Ravana, and missed to discern what is just. Thus, Rama wanted to kill Vali as a rehearsal to annihilate Ravana. The textual fact is Sugriva seeks Rama's help to save his life. There was no reference to his wife being taken away by Vali. I quote here, my elder brother, his mighty fist raised in rage, chased me all over the world, and I sought refuge in this hill. My life I saved, but not my kingdom. Now I seek your aid. Please help me. This is an evidence for Sugriva's intention to usurp the kingdom, a fair reason for Vali to exile him. Sugriva and everyone in the Vanara kingdom know that Wali is too strong to be killed by any. This has been clearly explained by mention in his article, Fratricide Among the Monkeys, wherein he registers, I quote here, there seemed little reason for Sugriva to have believed that his brother had been killed, and it sounds very much like the wish fulfillment one would expect in sibling rivalry, taking over of the kingdom and the enjoyment of Wali's wife Tara, the very crimes for which, in a stunning case of reversal, Wali himself is accused by Rama. As Sugriva intends to usurp the kingdom from Wali, he befriends Rama as the best choice. However, not an equal friendship, but lowers himself to a dog and a slave of his slave. Rama's silence here approves the hierarchical unequal structure of society as the divine order. Wali can be seen as a representative of native rulers who rule with prosperity in accordance with the local cultural codes and Aram. Vali, the victim, unfortunately believes Rama to be the one on earth to show the way of Dharma. Rama can be seen as a representative of cultural imperialism over the natives of the land. He degrades the cause of the natives as animalistic and worthless when he is questioned about befriending Sugriva for fratricide. At the same time, he justifies Vali's murder by endowing dharmic codes to the Vanaras, exposing his double standard approach to justice. He hides himself with his weapon while Vali and Sugriva fight and shoots his arrow at Vali. Herewith, Wally shoots certain unanswerable and thought provoking questions and statements at Rama. He questions the authority of the supreme Dharma with which Rama has come. He questions the behavior of Rama, which is strayed from the virtuous path. Does evil forbidden to others cease to be one if committed by you, who claim to be eternally on the side of Dharma? Is another question. He questions Manu Dharma, and the other question is, what fault have you found in me? And he says, I was no enemy of yours. My body was no burden to your land. Why then a deed so ignoble? An arrow from a place of hiding. And he blames Rama for ignoring virtue. He has not only destroyed Wali's life, but Dharma's frontiers. These are the questions by Wali. And Rama comes out with three interesting answers. Number one, Wali has not shown mercy and determined to kill Sugriva. And number two, without virtue, Wali has coveted Sugriva's wife. Number three, Sugriva has become his greatest friend, so he resolved to kill Wali. All these justifications are baseless and illogical. Mention highlights the compassionate and just Wali in his article, which may be taken to disprove Rama's first allegation, wherein he writes, Sugriva tells Rama how in the past Vali in battle refused to kill him and only asked him to leave. Wali had always acted justly. Even Rama acknowledges the fact that he was always forgiving, and Sugriva had no such noble intentions, and in fact resorted to treachery to kill his more powerful and more compassionate brother. To answer the second allegation, Wali speaks up as an indigenous native with the regional cultural precepts against the invaders' laws and codes, which is not applicable in his land. He says, all that you have called unbecoming is quite natural to us. Brahma has not imposed on us the code of chastity that truthful women of your race follow. He has left us in our natural state. For us, there is no Vedic marriage. Our tradition is simply to follow our natural instincts. I'm entirely guiltless. And after hearing all the justifications of Rama, Vali says, let all this be as it may, which implies that he did not accept them, but it is a way to put an end to the fruitless argument with Rama. How is it that you avoided fighting me in the open and aimed your arrow from a hidden place like a base and cruel hunter? Is his final question to which Rama could not answer. Rajaji, in his retelling of Ramayana, says, against this accusation, what defense Rama offer? Valmiki accepts that Rama gave some explanation with which Vali was satisfied, but I am omitting all this as pointless. A comparison can be drawn with the episode of Wali to the extinction of Neanderthals, the masters of the Middle East in the history of human species, written by a book written by Yuval Noah Harari, Sapiens, Brief History of Humankind. When Sapiens encountered Neanderthals, the result was the first and most significant ethnic cleansing campaign in history. The author says, I'm quoting, whether sapiens are to blame or not, no sooner had they arrived at a new location than the native population became extinct. Homo sapiens killed the Neanderthals, who were also of the same human species, thinking that they were punishing them. Rama also thought he is punishing Wali for his guilt. Therefore, in the name of Dharma and justice, we only witness cultural imperialism. Rama symbolizes an unknown cultural precepts imposed on the natives of the land who follow different cultural codes, laws, and justice. His actions can be seen as a manifestation of colonialist attitude, where the powerful impose their will on the marginalized groups because the powerful think they are about truth. It is from power truth comes out. Truth resides with the powerful, and whatever the powerful does is pure and sacred. Wallis killing represents the suppression of tribal autonomy and cultural identity. Rama's intervention in the affairs of the Vanara kingdom raises questions about the legitimacy of external intervention in indigenous societies. To conclude, justice is a figment of a collective imagination and a legal fiction. It cannot be pointed at. It is not a physical object, but it exists as a legal entity. It is bound by the laws of the country in which it operates. Justice does not exist outside the stories that people invent and tell one another, and no justice is outside the common imagination of human beings. The above ideas of Harari indicate that there is no absolute or universal justice. At least we have tried to convince ourselves with the process of justice as detailed and careful investigation, then announcement of verdict, finally executing punishments. Punishments related to verdicts also differ largely, and it is still unsettled. Justice is not common to every being of the world. The common canon of all beings are survival and living. Kamba himself writes that Wali has never wronged anyone in thought or deed. This is the right definition for Aram, wherein we read in Tirukural, the blemishless heart is the fountain of all virtues. Other than this, everything is an empty show. But Wali reached his extinction because he has yielded to certain beliefs and fallen for a language which he believed is true. Though he could not understand them, I quote, yeah, how can one like me understand your far-sighted righteousness? He also degrades himself, thoughtless, wretched, monkey, and dog. Therefore, he as a native succumbs to a systemic injustice enforced by the invader, despite his valid arguments. I just remember reading Animal Farm written by George Orwell, wherein he wrote several of them, the animals, several of them would have protested if they had the right arguments. So whenever we have the right arguments, we are able to protest, and through protestation, we get liberation, freedom. But in Wally's case, he had the valid arguments, right arguments, but he himself succumbed to the systemic injustice. I just run through the works cited here. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for patiently listening.
Thank you, sir, for your meaningful presentation. Now I request Dr. Venkatanarayan Sethuraman, sir, to give remarks on Mr. M. Prithivirajan's presentation.
Yeah, it was quite an interesting presentation, Prithvi. I really appreciate your work, and um, probably I'll just probably I'm not I don't have a strong hold over the literature of Ramayana as such, but obviously there's injustice and other things which we have read quite often. Just one thing I just want to point out about how the why Rama thought that it is not a crime, because the whole reason is that uh, the kind of structural injustice was embedded within the existing norms and rules at that point of time in the society over there. The, as you mentioned, the varnashrama dharma is something which was not something equal for everyone, did not treat everyone equally. Just today also I was teaching my students about the transition from varna to jati, how this transition happened, and what are the political economic factors that played a very significant role in this transition over there. So that is how the structures have been created in such a manner which is always favorable for the dominant sections of the population. It is not just about the Ramayana Mahabharata, which you can find even the contemporary period also. That's what I was also talking about. The kind of a structural inequality that we persist in the contemporary period also, you'll find that quite a dominant, whether it be caste based or whether it be the class based or the gender based also. All the structural inequalities are something which are embedded within the society so strongly that unless and until we have a collective conscience to challenge these structural inequalities, ultimately it's not going to really come out with any kind of benefit at all. One of the report which I quoted in my article also, the kind of inequality that we have in our society in the contemporary period is something where a minimum wage earner, a daily wage earner, he will take around 941 years to earn what a corporate CEO is going to earn in 1 year. That is the kind of different structural inequality we have, which is obviously which is against any form of justice is concerned. You look at the kind of the under trial prisoners in the contemporary period, you will find that almost 70% of them who belong to either Dalits or OBC or the minorities. That is what you will find all over India is concerned. This all reflects that even though you might it seemed to be a just society, but a society still have this kind of structurally discriminatory aspects, which absolutely doesn't get reflected at all. The traditional society also happened to be a similar way only. The Varnashrama Dharma, which is the so-called Chaturvarna, even though in Purusha Shukta you will find that in the Rig Veda, where the origin of that one, but the Purusha Shukta doesn't speak much about this classification is concerned. For the reason that the kind of mode of production during the Rig Veda period is what we call it as a pastoral community. So there isn't a kind of a clear classification or a difference among the people over there. Yes, obviously the difference was as many used to mention, it was based more on the color only. Varna is more at that initial point it was connoting towards the color only, but later point of a time when the pastoral community was moving towards an agricultural community, that is where you will find that the huge transformation, because agricultural community gives you opportunity to accumulate wealth. You have settled, so you have an option to accumulate wealth. The pastoral community did not have an opportunity to accumulate wealth at all. So there wasn't any class formation, but during the agriculture, when the transition happened, you will find a class formation within the society. That is where this Chaturvarna became one of a very, very significant. That is, the jatis and everything emerged, and it became one of a significant aspect in trying to suppress the people over there. So these mythical Ramayana and Mahabharata, all these mythical stories or something which evolved to justify this kind of systemic inequality or the systemic discrimination that existed over the time. That is what we witnessed how Mahabharata Krishna used to justify this Chaturvarna based on there is something which is based on the guna, that is based on the character, but the whole justification in the Mahabharata was in response to the Buddhist critique of the Chaturvarna, how it is being discriminatory towards the population, how this caste-based notions are excluding the major section of to respond to that critique only, they try to justify that it is based on the guna. But over a period, as we know that Manu was only trying to uh, uh, register or record what was happening in the society at that point of time. Even before the Manu itself, you find that the whole form of this the birth-based discrimination has already evolved. Manu was only recording that at a particular point of time. So it's quite interesting to reiterate this in your research also, where you are able to bring about that one. Probably you can. I would suggest certain readings probably might be useful for you also. The Riddles in Hinduism by Ambedkar is he deals with many of these aspects as far as Ramayana and Mahabharata, even the killing of Vali also Ambedkar deals with in detail in his Riddles of Hinduism. Within that we have here's a riddle for the Krishna and also Rama also. That is quite interesting for us to understand from the structural discriminatory perspective. That is one thing. Second work I will suggest is that Yelavarti Naveen Babu's Varna to Jati. Quite a very, very interesting work. It was his dissertation which is submitted in JNU in one century, 1980s. It's a very small book only. You'll find that from Varna to Jati. It also it's quite a unique attempt to understand this transformation from a political economy perspective. So your work also tries to locate the actions of I mean the structural inequality, so that might add some kind of evidence for you to substantiate your argument about how the discriminatory practices that were quite prevalent at that point of time. So these are some of my brief comments, and probably if there is any discussion, we can take it forward further. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the valuable suggestions and points. I noted down. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Now the floor is open for discussion. Any questions and queries are welcome.
Um, Very thought-provoking, enlightening session. I just wanted to share with both speakers that I use the idea of Varna and Jati in my argument about casteism is racism.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I did my research on Australian Aboriginal and
Okay.
Indian Dalit women's life writings.
Excellent.
So to justify the comparison, and I had delved into Varna and Jati.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm also working. I'm one of my book is it's a edited volume. We are working on race and caste. We're just trying to compare that one. I'm working with a Canadian professor, and hopefully by next year it should be coming out.
See, at that time when I was doing my PhD 2006-7, that
Mm,
was immediately after that Durban conference,
fine. Yeah.
where where they did receive a sympathetic hearing, but then
Mm,
the world was not ready to receive
true.
that idea that casteism is
Mm,
racism.
mm, 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 mm. That was quite interesting area to explore. In fact, I do write a lot on this Dalit issues also in Tamil Nadu. I've been recently on many of these issues also we have written. Right? Even Maman and others also we have written certain work on that. So probably that systemic or the structural inequality that you find in the society is still a perpetuating one. Something which really needs a lot of intervention, that too from the young generation. There has to be more of a political conscience, as Ambedkar said. That is something which is much needed in the contemporary time to challenge all these power structures. If not, it's not going to be very easy to bring about any kind of a transformation is concerned.
Of course, you must be knowing, for the sake of the students, one of my colleagues, Sharon, I don't think she's here on the call, she introduced me to Amartya Sen's The Idea of Justice.
Justice.
That's also a book that can be read.
Yeah, that's a quite interesting work also. Idea of justice. Yeah. Anybody wants to bring in any point for discussion in the forum?
Yeah, we have faculty on the call, so feel free to ask questions. Students are there.
Can I ask a question, sir?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes, Nivedita.
Sir, just a curious question though. As you said before, like liberalism, they expect inequality to be there in our society
Mm,
to have the in their idea. It is
mm,
necessary.
mm,
So, do you think that in the future, somewhere in the future, we'll also
mm.
have an equal society, or I mean, an egalitarian society or a liberal society?
No, the point is that egalitarianism is not about the equal society. When you look at the whole idea of egalitarianism from John Rawls and others, they believe in a society where the inequality has to be reduced. That is what reflecting in the Indian constitution also. In a liberal framework, you may not be able to create an equal society. That is not possible at all, because liberalism is basically reflecting the political phase of the capitalist political economy. So that is the reason why for liberalism the inequality is not an issue at all. I'll give you an example. Whether the Indian government or the international institutions, whenever they want to measure the poverty, they're just only going to look at the absolute poverty. That is, if you're going to earn more than 300 rupees a day or 200 rupees a day, you're no more a poor. They're not going to look at the relative poverty, which is going to show the inequality that exists in a society. There is most of this relative inequality have been brought out by many of the scholars only. They have Thomas Piketty's recent work on the capital, the new capital, that is considered one of the very on an Indian society only. He only traces how the inequality levels have gone worse than the pre-independence period. So, in a liberal framework, because liberalism, J.S. Mill has theorized the whole idea of this one, the whole idea of meritocracy and the whole idea of a merit, where he said that the inequality has to be tolerated. That is the whole belief over there in a liberal framework. So, you take any kind of a liberal constitution or a liberal countries, there is absolutely no possibility of creating an absolute equal society at all. Inequality is going to persist only. But within the liberalism itself, there are different phases. What phase we had from the time of independence, we call it as a welfare liberalism. Welfare liberalism is something which is reflecting in the Indian constitutional ideology also. It wants to create an egalitarian society. Egalitarian society is not about creating an absolute equality, it is about reducing the inequality. That is what the Indian constitutional provisions also, you'll find that one. So that is what the welfare liberalism we had till 1990s. After 1990s, the kind of liberalism which we are trying to follow is a neoliberalism. This is something which doesn't believe in any kind of a welfare liberal framework at all. Here, it wants the state to create a market. That is, the state has to withdraw and the state has to create a market for to thrive over that. That is what we witnessed from 1991. Even in my PhD work also, I worked on the neoliberalism and its impact on the elementary education in India, where we tried to trace that from 1990s there has been a major transformation, a major change in the way in which the state is trying to reorganize itself, not as a welfare state, not as an interventionist state, which you will find in the Indian constitution, but as a state which wants to perpetuate or create more markets to flourish over there. That is the whole theoretical framework of neoliberalism. So we are in a neoliberal phase now. So at least in a welfare liberalism, we are able to follow an egalitarian principle where we are able to reduce the inequality. But in the neoliberal phase, absolutely there is no scope for any egalitarianism. That is how you'll find that all social security measures, all social welfare, everywhere the state is completely withdrawing, and you find that the private capital plays a very significant role over there. You have a society where more than 50-60% of the women are anemic. That is, we are in the hunger index. We are the extreme end over there. Only a few countries are below us. As far as the stunting is concerned, as far as different kind of the children related, all these indicators, if you're going to look at India, is a very, very worse situation. But if you're going to look at the other side of that one, we have a number of billionaires who have been growing over there, and we see all this kind of Ambani weddings with a huge 3,000, 4,000 crores. At the other side, you have a hunger. That is the kind of a structural inequality which is being perpetuated by this system. So you cannot expect the equality to happen within this particular framework. There has to be some kind of a transformation from this framework. Unless and until, it's highly impossible to see the equal society at all. That is absolutely not possible within, because that is the way in which it has been constructed itself.
So, can you share with us about the concept of welfare state?
Yeah.
Whether that could reduce these inequalities?
Yeah, the welfare state is a model which we followed from the time of independence. Not only us, even the European states also follow the welfare state. There is a different reason for that one. If you're going to look at the European countries, by the after the World War II, there has been a major destruction over there. So they want to recreate the society. That is why, based on the Keynesian compromise, the Keynesian principle played a significant role in the creation of the welfare state. Why the welfare state was created in the European context? Because due to the war, destruction of the world wars, they want to recreate a society. Means the education, health, these are the sectors which needs to be completely recreated. Obviously, the private capital will not be interested at that point of time, because the private capital will always get in whenever it gets a profit. If there is no profit, the private capital is not going to get. So the state has to play an important role. That is how the welfare state emerged in the European countries, where it created. Till recently, you will find that most of these countries, including Germany, everywhere, they have a very strong state-funded education system. But there is a changes that is happening after 2008 crisis. You will find that more and more privatization is happening. Last year, you will find that in many states in US also, they have withdrawn the affirmative action policies also. Everyone is moving towards more of a profit making or allied kind of institution. That is what you will find out. In Indian context, at the time of independence, we had a very poor social indicators. Obviously, there is no possibility, because one of the important aspect of colonialism also, the colonialism made sure that in wherever they are operating, they don't want any kind of a capitalist class to emerge. Individual capitalists will be there. The capitalists as a class, they never allowed to emerge. As we all know historically, how the cotton industry has been destroyed in India, and how in England they were able to create the dependency for the Indians also. So since since there is no capitalist class at that point of time, the state played an important role. That is how the welfare state emerged in India. That is what you will find in the constitutional framework and everything. But by 70s and 80s, obviously all the capitalists who benefited out of this welfare state, because the state invested so much on the infrastructure, IITs, IIMs, the infrastructure, the steel industry, everything state invested, that benefited a lot the private capitalist industry only. So they became little self-reliant. That is where from 80s, 70s and 80s, we'll find that there is a huge pressure on the government to move towards more and more neoliberal framework where the state should withdraw. Finally, due to certain economic crisis, by mid of 80s itself, we have already moved towards the neoliberalism. But 90, we officially adopted the neoliberal economic principles where the state was slowly withdrawing. One example I'll give you, till from 1950 to 1990, our education expenditure even though we started with 0.5% of GDP in 1950s, but we were able to increase and we were able to reach around 3% of our GDP for our educational expenditure is concerned of the budget by 1990. From 1990 till 2024, if you're going to look that, we are just hovering around between 3 and 4 only for the education. This is not something which is because the state is not able to afford money for education. The state can afford money for that one. One of the important principle of neoliberalism is that the state should play a positive role in creating market for the private sector. Wherever there is a possibility of creating market, the state should play a positive role by trying to not increase the budget. Not only education, you can apply it to health and other health as well. We spend only 1% of the GDP in all the sectors. The state will try to stagnate the funding over there, the budgetary funding for that one. Automatically, at the same time, you are allowing the private. Automatically, the public opinion started moving towards the private college because they feel that that gives you a more quality education, the quality, everything. They started moving. 97% of the enrollment happened in the schools by 1990, only in the government schools. Now it is only the state, the government school enrollment is around 60 to 70%, almost 30 to 40%. There has been a transformation. This is also because you have a lot of schools in the rural areas where a lot of private players doesn't want to go and open over there. That is the reason why it's delaying the process. But this is the way in which the state is creating a market for the private players in a neoliberal era. There are various. You talk about the water. The state is supposed to provide a potable drinking water, but when the state declines to do that one, you have all the private Pepsi, Coke. Everyone gets an opportunity. This is how the market is created. Education, health, everywhere. This is the new liberal framework where the welfare state has been pushed away, and the whole idea of the market-based everything, all social. Sectors, now you see that the privatization is happening over a period. So that is quite a very worrisome issue as far as the contemporary politics is concerned, because still the inequality persists. Still the 80 to 90% of the population in India still depend upon the state for their survival itself. That is why in the last election also, in the threat to constitution became one of a significant narrative in the whole electoral process, because still the constitution gives that kind of a protection for 90% of the population to survive in this country. So that is why the constitutional values are still relevant, but the existing the political economic practices are something which are completely against the constitutional values. So uh, how far we are going to survive in this, how far we are going to protect the constitutional values, is something which we have to really think and deliberate more in the contemporary period.
Are economists working towards an alternative to neoliberalism? Because here, the capitalists are the risk takers. Uh, on that pretext, we give them their importance. And in terms of figures, the revenue comes in. But in terms of
Yeah,
per capita income, per capita income is low, right? So, is there any alternative which will um, Yeah, speak for per capita income.
Yeah, the GDP may not indicate the clearly the whether there is a real development in a society or not.
Mm.
Because you might have a higher GDP, but at the same time, the wealth concentration is also very high now. That is something problematic. So you're creating wealth, but it is not getting redistributed because the state is withdrawing. The state doesn't want to intervene strongly to redistribute. That is what the welfare state is all about. Welfare state is supposed to redistribute the wealth. But since the state is withdrawing, you don't have any agency to redistribute the wealth at all. So having a more and more GDP growth without redistribution is something which is not good for any society. Because inequality levels, if it is going to get more and more worse, there is going to be a political conflict on it. It's not something which is going to be accepted by everyone, right? So there has to be more deliberation to look for an alternative, how to go about in reducing this inequality, the structural inequalities that we are having in our society.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
So please don't misread the silence of the students.
yeah,
They are
no, no.
taking in a lot.
Yeah, I know that we also had a long time of online classes. We know we have the experience. Obviously, that's why I always say that online may not give that space for people to really open up and speak and clarify and discuss and debate and those things at all.
Uh, this is actually complementing our regular
Yeah, yeah, I understand.
on-site classes.
Yeah.
And at Queen Mary's, we started this club to expose our students to intellectuals from
Mm.
outside our system.
Okay,
So
okay.
this is actually something that is
Mm.
enriching their lives.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a government college.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I'm from
Yeah.
Chennai only.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So probably sometime if you have an chance for doing an offline thing, I'd love to come and speak to students.
Oh, you're most welcome, sir. Let us
Yeah,
know when
yeah,
you're in Chennai next.
yeah, yeah. No, I'll be
Honestly.
briefly on December, but I have some other this thing. I'll be
Okay, I'll
speaking
keep
to
in touch with
Loyola.
you.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I think you're not on WhatsApp, sir, if I'm right.
I'm in WhatsApp. I'm in WhatsApp.
Okay, I was trying to reach you yesterday.
No, that number which I've given, I think that's not a WhatsApp number.
Yes, yes, I wanted to send you the invite personally.
Yeah, yeah.
Then I found,
If you can message me SMS, then I'll message through your WhatsApp.
yes, yes, sir, yes, sir.
I'll do that and be in touch. And whenever I come to Chennai, I'll let you know. Please, if there is an opportunity, I'd love to interact directly with the students. That'll be more interesting for us on these topics.
I remember my guide, telling me that, this scholarly diction is something that, we need to acquire. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them are MA students.
Mm-hmm.
And the conversation that we are having itself, you know,
Mm-hmm.
they have probably understood the difference between systematic and systemic.
Okay.
That
Okay.
it's systemic probably might even be a new word to them.
Mm-hmm.
And the presentations, you
Mm-hmm.
know, uh, brought out what systemic injustice
Mm-hmm.
is.
Mm-hmm.
So like that, I mean, they're definitely part of their learning process, and I'm so grateful that they could listen to thinkers like you and Prithvi.
Thank you.
Thank
Really,
you.
I really appreciate doing this, continuing this kind of a thing, and that's really an amazing initiative. And really, it's such kind of interaction will strengthen the
Yes,
whole idea. That such kind of deliberations are needed at this point of time. Without that, it's going to be a
it's definitely grassroots work. It's definitely.
because the way in which the education system is also transforming itself, the space for such kind of a critical engagement is also shrinking in contemporary. So more we create such things, it's going to be really beneficial for the students.
Yes, we'll be in touch with you. Thank you,
Sure.
Prithvi. That's definitely not my area of expertise, so I can't say much. But I was blown away by your paper and your presentation. Very proud that you are a part of our department as a research scholar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yes. We can conclude this session, Nixie.
Yes, ma'am. As we come to the close of the enlightening and engaging section, it's my privilege to extend a heartfelt vote of thanks to all. First and foremost, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to our keynote speaker, Dr. Venkatanarayan Sethuraman sir, for inspiring and thought-provoking address on understanding structural inequality and social justice. And I thank our paper presenter, Mr. M. Prithivirajan sir, for your dedication and hard work towards the presentation. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. Special thanks to our principal ma'am, Dr. Uma Mageshwari ma'am, who is always support us for every aspect of this event. We deeply appreciate your faith in our visions, and I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Maria Preeti Srinivasan, ma'am, head of the Department of English, Queen Mary's College, and in charge of the Intandem Research Club. Your unwavering dedication has been instrumental in our success of our club. I also take this opportunity to express a sincere appreciation to everyone associated with the club. Lastly, I thank our listeners for being a part of our research club journey. Our next meet will be on 13/12/2024 on the topic refugee studies. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody. Thank you.